Welcome to Facing the Canon. My guest on the program is Girma Bishaw, founder of the Gratitude Initiative. Girma, welcome to Facing the Canon.
Thank you so much. It's a privilege for me to be here.
It's great to have you. I know you're from Ethiopia.
Yes.
Killy and I have had two wonderful ministry visits to Ethiopia. Truly love Ethiopia as a country, but particularly the people and the coffee.
That's right.
Where did you grow up, Girma?
So I was born in a place called Girma, which is, I think, 300 kilometers outside of Addis, the capital city. But I grew up in Addis, in the capital, until I came to Britain.
To Britain.
I lived in Addis, yeah.
Were you brought up as a Christian?
So my family, I grew up an Ethiopian Orthodox
Yes.
Christian. My dad, as well as my mother, very devoted Ethiopian Orthodox. But the problem is, I think it was religiosity.
Yes.
We know everything about Christianity. We celebrate Christmas, we celebrate Easter, but there wasn't any kind of personal knowledge of God. The fact that we have the Bible in the house, in the bedroom, not opened. We leave the reading of the Bible to the priests. So the fact that we have the Bible is good enough to drive away evil from the place, and going to church and kind of following the religious rituals rather than personal relationship with God.
So for you, when would you say that you had your personal encounter with Jesus?
So I think as I grow up, there is what Ethiopian Orthodox Christianity gave me was a fear of God,
Yes.
a consciousness of the existence of God. But I wanted to please Him, so it was a struggle. I found it very, very difficult to please God, to do what I felt, what people told me that God wants me to do and to be. So there was a guilt, and I tried, and at some point I gave up. So because I thought it's just, it's only maybe it's a priest who can live out in a way that is a lifestyle that's acceptable to God. So I finished my secondary school, and then I started going to college.
Yes.
And I met this young man who was a Christian, who was evangelical Christian, but he was backslidden. So he never told me about Jesus at all. So one day he invited me to his house for Saturday lunch, and I went there, and I saw the family were evangelical Christians, so I saw something was different in that place. We prayed. We prayed before we start eating. So, but we also pray in different Ethiopian families.
Yeah.
People pray. So that wasn't a surprise. But after lunch, he took me to his room, and he left me in his room, and he put Bob Marley's music on, and he said, "Give me an hour, I'll come back." And he left the room. So later on, I realized there was a Bible study on Saturday afternoon that was happening in their house. There was evangelists who came to teach the Bible to them. So he didn't want me to know, because out of respect, he attended, but he left. So in between the musics, I heard them singing. So I just stopped it and started to listen. This is evangelicals are the ones who are singing this song. I was just saying, I couldn't reconcile his lifestyle with the people that I know, the evangelicals. So I asked him afterwards, I said, "What's going on? Yeah, are you evangelical Christian? We call them Pentecostals."
Yes.
And he said, "Yeah, we are." But I said, "But you are you are worse than me. That's what I said to him.
Yeah, your
And,
lifestyle.
your lifestyle doesn't match you.
What's that expression? Your walk doesn't match your talk.
Exactly.
Or
Exactly. So he said, I don't want to talk about it. So I respected that. I left him. But his dad invited me again the week after. That week, when he tried to take me to the room, I protested. I said, no, I will attend the Bible study. So he didn't want me to, so he struggled, but eventually I won. And I attended, and I just couldn't believe when the person, the evangelist, was unpacking the gospel in that room. I just heard the gospel for the first time.
Yes.
And it was, I was really, my heart was kind of melted, and I just said to him, so Jesus have done everything for us.
Yes.
He paid the price, and so now I am free to do anything I want, because that's what I see my friend does. So he said to me, no, Jesus not only brought a forgiveness of sin, but actually he broke the power of sin.
Absolutely.
And that was the journey. And then I actually gave my life this was on Saturday, and then on Wednesday there was another program. He invited me again. That day I gave my life to Jesus,
Christ.
And since then.
But isn't it amazing, Girma, how even God can use a backslidden Christian,
Exactly,
with who doesn't really want you to know, to actually allow you.
Yeah.
The opportunity to meet Jesus. I mean, I find that remarkable how God used a very unlikely person in an unlikely situation so that you hear the gospel.
That's right.
It's amazing.
He
When
was
you
encouraged.
when you were 18, Girma, Ethiopia at the time, there was a civil war. You were under communist rule. The army were recruiting all 18-year-old males.
Yeah.
So what happened in your situation? Because I know they came and knocked on your door to find you. What happened?
So at the time, it's not just only 18. 16 plus was in danger. They wouldn't differentiate 16 plus, 17. So we were in a war with Eritrea.
Yes.
And the government was recruiting young people, and with a very inadequate preparation, they used to send people to the war front. And we didn't believe in the war as well, because 90% of my friends were from Eritrea.
Yes.
So it was like fighting with their brothers and sisters back home. So it was really hard. And obviously our hospitals, the local hospitals, was full of people coming back from war.
And of course, the new recruits would all be put on the front line.
Yeah, after a few months of trainings,
basic trainings,
they will be sent out. So, it was a very terrifying moment for us. So one day, the outer gate somebody was knocking at the outer gate. So I went to open, and there was two local soldiers, police, and there was one civilian. So they said, where is your brother? So they thought I was the younger one. My face was, luckily didn't
look like a young boy.
Exactly, young boy. So I know they were looking for me. So I said, he's out. So I acted like that at the age they were expecting me to. So I said, I don't know. I said, when is he coming back? I said, I don't know. They said, okay, we'll come back later. So they left. So I told my mother what happened. So we immediately left the house. We went to the other side of Addis, where my auntie used to live. So we waited until it was dark, because we didn't want our neighbors to know that I was in the house. So I went in, and I was in the house for 3 months without coming out.
You did leave the house?
I leave the house.
For 3 months? Well, because obviously you'd be vulnerable if you had.
There was that vulnerability, and my mother was scared, and the people came back asking as well. So they used to put a lot of pressure on families to tell them where the young people were. So then that is when I started to explore ways to go out of Ethiopia.
Yeah, to leave Ethiopia.
That's right.
And okay, and it's a remarkable divine story.
Yeah.
But eventually you got given
Yeah.
a passport by the British Embassy miraculously.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, I didn't know anything about Britain. I never thought I would come to
Yes.
Britain, and I was given a tourist visa. But still, I don't even understand how that came about. But God, in His own providence.
It's God's providence.
That's right.
You come to England, and what year did you come?
In 1990.
1990. You didn't know anybody.
So I didn't know anybody. There was people who came here to study before the situation changed, and some of them remained here. So there was some Ethiopians who started a fellowship at the time, but I have, and there was a few people that I know who have been to Britain, but I don't know where they are. I don't know any, and we never had any communication or anything like that. So I came on my own, and I was not expecting to meet anybody at Heathrow. I was, the next day I went to the Home Office. I asked for asylum, and I was given that asylum, and I was given a place to live and weekly money to live by, and then to study English. I didn't speak English at the time, and to study and to work and to be a contributor.
I like the story, Girma, of when you're walking in the street in London and you overhear two people moaning. Yeah. And I love that story. Tell us, what were they moaning about?
So since then, my heart I'm grateful to God, obviously, and
of course,
gratitude is
yes,
as experiencing the grace of God erupts a heart of gratitude within you. And that was, my eyes was open to see the good in people, in others, and in the nation. And that evening, it was in 2018, I was in West End, and there was a very posh English couple standing on the other side of, just a little bit away from me. And I was waiting for a friend of mine. I think they were waiting for a pickup. So there was two pastors who talked about some kind of politics, but the way they were arguing was so funny, so it made us laugh. So the lady started to have conversation. She said to me, I am ashamed of my country, Britain. Yes. And she said, look at immigration, look at Brexit, look at hate crime, look at racism, look at, she just listed quite challenges that
all the things that she thought were wrong.
Yeah, and then she obviously, as an African, as a black man, she expected me to agree and also add some more on the list that she gave me. But I said to her, I'm sorry, madam, I don't agree with you. And she said, what do you mean you don't agree with me? I said, because Britain is not just that. There are qualities in this country that we sometimes take it for granted. And I listed some of the qualities that I've been contemplating on. So she came over, and then she said to me, I'm sorry for asking, but how can you talk about Britain? Where are you from? And I said, I'm from Ethiopia. I came with $250 in my pocket, knowing nothing about Britain, knowing English, but I was given a place to live, a money to live by, opportunity to work, to study, and to be a contributor in the British society. So I am what I am today by the grace of God and by the generosity of the British people. So when I talk about Britain, I cannot start from the negative.
Yes.
And she started crying. She said, you renewed my hope for my country. We are the one who are grateful. Where would Britain be without the migrant community? Look
Yes.
at NHS, look at this. I say, no, 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 no. We are the one who are grateful. Where would I be if I was rejected? And she said, no, no, no. We are. So we just kept on reciprocating, and the atmosphere that was created was so beautiful.
Girma, there's that wonderful saying, if we change the way that we look at things, the things that we look at change.
That's right.
And sometimes it's an attitude, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
You have a wonderful book, your book, The Gratitude Way.
Yeah.
You are the founder of a ministry called the Gratitude Initiative.
That's right.
Tell us, what's the backstory to the initiative? What's the backstory to this book?
So I think maybe 4 things that really, it came out of a concern. It wasn't intentionally. I discovered gratitude out of concern, really. My concern was how, whenever I'm in a leadership meeting where there's diverse people, I see that there are elephants in the room. There are issues that we don't know how to talk about.
Yeah.
And that really prevents biblical standard unity from forming among us. So it's very activity based. There's no true relationship. And I start to ask questions. Why don't you talk about these things? And they say to me, no, there's no framework that allows us to engage with this in a constructive manner. This would be, it would be people. There's a historical baggage to it. There's, so if we raise that issue, the whole unity group will scatter. So we don't want to talk about. So that was a huge concern to me. The second problem I was struggling with was, all the terrorism incident that happened in Britain was committed by the third generation of the migrant community. So I saw the danger and the fact that there's just this negativity that is given to people. So that obviously affected created this toxic environment in the public arena. The small minorities, loud voice rather than the silent majority, because we didn't get that platform where we can actually talk about the good, so that we can bring balance. So these are the problem, and how we are very much negative oriented. That when we try to solve a problem, we start from the negative, and as if there is no positive, as if there is no.
So we're constantly critical, aren't we?
We're constantly critical.
Critical, negative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we think that is the way to solve a problem.
Yeah.
So as I was really wrestling with all these questions, I discovered gratitude, and I saw that, gratitude, people think gratitude is this passive response to the good that we receive. So when we say when I talk about gratitude, people say, why would I be grateful? Why should I be grateful? But the biblical idea of gratitude has got nothing to do with that. Gratitude in the Bible is a posture in life. It's a stance in life. It is a conviction that the good came first, not evil.
Yeah.
So the good God created a good world, and the good world, and he said, he saw his creation, he said it's good. So God's goodness is intrinsic to nature. So when we acknowledge the good first, we don't deny evil, we don't deny suffering, we don't pretend as if those evils doesn't exist. But what happens is, when we acknowledge the good, we transcend evil, the evil that has been thrown at us. That is, then we can engage with evil from a place of freedom. When somebody does something bad to you, the natural response or what that bad thing wanted to create in you is to respond to it negatively. But when you zoom out and acknowledge the good in the presence of evil, you transcend above the spell of evil. Then you are free from the impact of that evil.
Yes.
Then that is when then you can be able to engage with it from a place of freedom, and that is when you can be able to overcome evil with the good, because the good has more power than evil. So acknowledging the good. If I acknowledge the good, if I come to you with just to give you just a story, for example, from my own, just to clarify, there was a person that I was working with in ministry for a very long time, and she actually humiliated me publicly.
Right.
Now, I was very angry. I wanted to...
and felt hurt.
Very hurt. And she had absolutely no right to do what she did, because I was not accountable to her. There was a body of trustees or that we are accountable to.
Yes.
She could have gone to them, or she could have come to me first. Or
yeah, there was a procedure that she could have followed.
Exactly.
Yes.
But she did that. Now, I was they were there, so they were upset by what happened. It was confused a lot of people. So they told us to have a meeting in 3 days' time. Now I went home and I was furious, and I was the first. And then I started to think about when we met. Like after a few hours or so, I started when I met her, and I started to remember how should she have been a blessing to me. There was a critical time in my life where her prayer, her support was so a huge blessing to me. And I just started to think about the whole thing. And as I was thinking, something started to change in me. That anger evaporated, and all the resentment, the humiliation, everything was just changing. And I saw the good, and I saw how the potential, how that incident could actually erase all the good we spent together, all the good things that I've received from her.
So did you end up resolving that issue?
So in terms of, we went to that meeting.
Yes.
And then obviously the expectation was, she was ready to defend herself, and they were, the atmosphere was very tense.
And they expected you to attack her.
Exactly.
Yes.
So they said, okay, what happened on Sunday was wrong. Which one of you started to tell us what happened?
Yes.
So I said, I will speak. And I started to talk about when I met her, what she did for me and everything.
So you were sharing the positives.
Exactly. The whole atmosphere changed. The way she said
her demeanor changed.
Exactly.
Her body language changed.
And then I said, I really don't understand why you did what you did. Tell me what happened. And then she said, she assumed that what I said or done before was intentionally to affect her, and that this was a misunderstanding. And she said it was easy. Now it created a space of grace, so it was very easy for her to accept her fault and to say sorry. But she needed to be disciplined.
Yes.
That is not my job.
Sure.
The
manner in which she did it, of course. But the whole point being there, though, Girma, is that you diffused a very hostile situation by being kind.
We are now close friends.
And now you're close friends.
We could have that friendship could have ended.
And Girma, there is so many things that we can be grateful for.
Yeah.
So many, and we focus on the negative, don't we, instead of the positive. We focus on what we don't have rather than what we do have.
That's right.
There's so much that we need to be retaught, and I think that's so wonderful. Not just your book, The Gratitude Way, but your whole initiative.
Yeah.
And also you're hoping, you have done, but you're hoping that it will expand, that there will be like a gratitude Sunday that will tell us what your hope is about that.
So, gratitude changes our missional posture.
Yeah.
Now, from the gospel perspective, the gospel is saying, from God's perspective, human beings are worth dying for. Now, we are engaging with people who thinks God thinks that those people are created an image of God, image bearers, who are so precious to God that he gave his son. So our posture needs to be that of reverence when we engage with humanity.
Yes.
Not just from the negative, from sinful place, but actually first it's a good news. It's a coming of the good. It is the kingdom of God is at hand. So repent. So repentance is requested because the good has come. The holiness of God has come. The gospel, the love of God has come. So that changes our engagement with our community.
Yes.
And that Sunday service, it started during COVID, when we started, when we are appreciating people who are doing a good thing. So I was asking church leaders to engage with the community and asking their communities, who are you grateful for during that time? Who do you want to appreciate? And then selecting the names of those people, and then ask them to come to church and to give appreciation for those people in our communities who are doing good. And then using that platform to say the source of all goodness is God himself, and he actually gave us his son, Jesus Christ. And so that gives an opportunity for us to share the gospel. It helps people to see the good in the community, because a grateful society is very close to the gospel, because once you start to notice the good, and and that your life is a contribution of thousands and thousands of people, then you see that you can't do anything on your own. You see your limitation.
Yes.
Then the question of God becomes inevitable.
It does. It certainly does. Do you know, I often say, Girma, we say the grass is greener over that side of the fence. Yeah. But the truth is, the grass is not greener over that side of the fence. Yeah. It's not greener over this side of the fence. Yeah. It's greener when you water it.
That's right.
Well, that's Girma, right. I am grateful to you that you're challenging us all to have a heart of gratitude and to be more grateful. And I pray that this ministry will become a global movement. So Girma, I'm grateful for you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on Facing the Canon.
A huge pleasure.
I hope you found that inspiring. It's something we really do need to think about, how we can be more grateful and have a heart of gratitude for others and for God. Thank you for joining us on Facing the Canon. Please join us again.